let's begin our roundtable. As you perhaps know, this year, Stack Russia have developed database of vulnerabilities and threats. It took a long time to prepare it. The idea and feel content of this database, well, our roundtable will be dedicated to why we have created it, why is it useful, and opinion of experts on this particular question. So that's our first speaker should not be introduced, the head of the second department of Stack Russia. Hello, dear colleagues. Should we sit or should we stand up? Well, I have no presentations with me. Okay, does it work or it doesn't work? Yes, it works. Yes, it works. Today I have no presentations, but I'm going to tell you about well-known topic, and many of you, perhaps while getting ready for this event today or looking at the agenda, have looked at what are we going to speak about? Threats database that was built by Federal Service for Technical and Export Control. It was developed by our Technical Control Service, Stack. It's available to everybody. Its address is bdu.stack.ru, and you can enter through the official Stack of Russia, and there's a site of Technical Protection of Information where we have the reference to it. So if any one of you will be interested in this slide, you will be able to look at it and ask questions about it. But right now, in a short period of time, I would like to tell you about what was the main reason to create such informational resource, such a database of threats and vulnerabilities, and how it will continue functioning in the future, and how will it develop in the future. So what was the main motive for developing such a database? For a long period of time, well, if you work in the informational security sphere for a long period of time, you remember that legal requirements of Stack of Russia, legal requirements of our organization were very strict from the point of view. They were not connected to certain specific threats, and they did not depend on those threats, because we thought that there is a certain list of threats for which we can form a certain list of requirements, and these requirements should be fulfilled and should make informational system to be safe. But you know that time was passing, and in the beginning of the year 2000, when in principle we have started seeing a wave of new information technologies, developments, the activities of law enforcement agencies, and I will speak for my sector of responsibility. And the main emphasis was to extend and publish a law on personal data, which has predefined to provide informational security to a wide circle of informational systems which keep such private data. I mean, our service has changed a concept of forming these requirements, and since then we started defining the terms and definitions of threats to personal data, to information. We started defining ideas that measures of protection of information in the information systems should be interconnected with threats to their security and to the security of information. A number of basic models were defined, and it was in the beginning of the year 2005, 2006, in the year 2007, of course, and in principle, until recently, this concept of forming protection systems, defense systems, and realization of defensive measures in informational systems, well, this approach was maintained by us. But nevertheless, the process of understanding the problem is a constant process, is a cognitive process which constantly developed. So these events which are happening, events like these, events like happen with other organizations like digital security in the autumn, our communications with you as experts, well, it has brought us to a number of other problems, and we should go lower than threats of information security. But we also should speak also about more technical things. We should start speaking about more practical side of the question of providing informational security to the companies. We should speak about discovery, detection, and removal of vulnerabilities in the software and informational systems in general. Well, I will be honest with you when speaking about it. One of such engines, conductors, these were two events which are happening in Russia in the spring and in the autumn, because we usually participate in those events, and these events, when they look at the practical side of this question of realization of attacks, discovering of vulnerabilities, etc., etc. So such communication has led us to, and it has convinced us that in our legislative requirements and legislative documents which are being published by us, we should include questions of analysis of vulnerabilities and their discovery. So we have included this question in the agenda, and if you're involved in realization of requirements in some state public authorities, this is order number 17 by STEC of Russia, requirement of protecting the information in a state informational system. They have a direct requirement which defines on the stage of creating the informational system, on the stage of their exploitation, they should make periodical audit for vulnerabilities and take measures on their removal. Next document that was developed with the measures of protecting the automated systems of controlling the important facilities like industrial automated process control systems, APCS. We also have developed a law on the need to discover the vulnerabilities and take measures on their removal. The same question was transferred to the stage of certification and protection of information and software in the process of certification tests in the lab that tests software and hardware. And of course they should do this work, and the depth could be different of those tests, but nevertheless this objective was defined for them. So we started moving in this direction very seriously. So one of the first questions that we have faced: where should we take information, initial information, in order to be able to realize all those laws that we're speaking about? And I'm speaking on the level of the state bodies of authorities and integrators involved in the issue of implementations of measures in state informational systems. So when we made an attempt to look at well-known international and American databases of vulnerabilities like CVE and other ones, when we have referred to them, well, in certain circles we have been suggested, due to the fact that these documents have a certain legal power, these sources have been removed from us, because on a certain level lawyers and those who follow these requirements on the state level, they think in different categories. So we came with a question of creating in Russia our own resource, which could be useful and responsible while doing the work on discovery of vulnerabilities and threats in the software and information system. And we have set such an objective to ourselves, to discover all the threats, and we have a certain department involved in this work. So we have started this work. Well, I would like to speak about several aspects of this work and about the main purpose of this resource and where the name came from, because we analyzed a lot of different publications published by the expert community, published in the internet, and the first one was why this threat database, why not database of just vulnerabilities? And it's the first question that was asked by many people, but I don't know whether you know or not. But my question will sound more like an official question to you, but formation of the database of threats to the security and information, we have special authority for that. But, well, if we are state bodies of authority, if we're a law enforcement agency, we have to do something that we're authorized to do. So we were not able to call it database of vulnerabilities. Well, and if we will take definition of database such, which is defined by national standards today, there was no need to rename it differently. And the second one, the purpose one. Well, the main purpose is the sphere of our activity. Is a state informational systems are involved and key systems of informational infrastructure. But first of all, these are industrial systems and APCS and the critical facilities. Everything why we do this work is related to these two categories of systems: automated process control systems and software which used inside of these systems. And on an annual basis, we do monitoring out of the sources which are available to us in order to define which are the most common programs which are used in these classes of systems. And then our work is being planned for the year ahead on the basis of the classes of the software which are used in these systems. Therefore, many of you, if you ask yourself questions, why don't we have some other types of software related with the banking sphere of activities? Because we didn't have this objective from the very beginning. In the beginning, our main objective was to regulate our main area of activities. Well, as to the main purpose of creating it, well, I will speak in more detail about that. But first of all, at a given stage, I would like to emphasize to you, because you should understand that the experience of forming such a resource in Russia, we had no such experience, and our colleagues, American colleagues who did support and who provided functioning of CVE, for example, nobody will say to you how they do it and how their internal structures and systems are built in their companies. So we, basically speaking, working, cooperating with Russian organizations which do specialize in such operations. We right now are trying until the end of the year. We are trying to optimize our work, and if some of our experts tells us that some information is not really updated because the delay of the information from being published in other sources is 2 weeks, and I will tell you why. But 2-3 weeks after the first publication, well, we are trying to keep this tempo and mechanisms of analysis, discovering the new threats. And I think that if we will find common direction of work with the expert community and with respective organizations, of course, who specialize in this particular work, then we'll achieve better frequency and better quality of our operations in this direction, in this sphere. Therefore, right now, we are on a stage of working with organizational and technical questions to analyze, to discover, to work with experts, to describe those vulnerabilities and threats. So all those criticisms that were published against us, yes, some of those criticisms are really viable, but I would like to tell you the following. Out of the proposals that came to us, 19 proposals came to us to improve the functioning of this resource and its operation. 13 were considered. The 7 remaining are still being continued to be developed because they are really costly ones, and we need to attract more financial means and manpower. So it works as an informational resource whose main objective is to inform and provide informational support to specialists, integrators, clients, and operators to work in the area of discovering and analyzing threats. Afterwards, we do assume we do assume that we will introduce links in regulatory documents, and it will be used on different stages of organizing and conducting our work, from the point of view of creating protected system and from the point of view of certification tests and certification of systems protecting information. Now I would like to say a few words that I would like to emphasize. Right now there are 64 threats and more than 10,000 vulnerabilities. Speaking about the vulnerabilities of software, well, I will speak about it in more detail. What is the logic and what is the principle of work with this particular resource? So as to the security threats, they are being updated and will be continued updated in a quarterly basis. So the periods of threat upgrades, because it's a pretty statical information, as to vulnerabilities, they are included into this database every week. So once a week we have an update of the system which includes vulnerabilities that information about which was published recently. And I would like to say that not all vulnerabilities are hitting this database. First of all, it includes the list of the software that we're speaking about and we're protecting. And the second objective is not just simply take and copy it from some place to another place, but we should check whether it's a vulnerability and whether it's available in a certain product that we're responsible for. If it's not confirmed by the manufacturer, then it's clear. So we are trying to not to put all the vulnerabilities in this database, but all the information that is being published from different sources is being validated. So what are sources? Sources are you. When you discuss those vulnerabilities, when you speak about them on some forums, I'm speaking about commonly accessible forums. Of course, this information is always being read and viewed by us. We take it into consideration when we do our work, and plus, of course, information that's been published by various official sources. And I never was hiding this, including CVE database and all other sources. And in total, we have totally 15 sources which are being constantly analyzed. And on the basis of these sources, we make samples, we do our research, and then we make decisions about including or non including vulnerabilities into our resource. What else I would like to tell you? We do work not only alone, but we involve other organizations in our work, and we would like to attract expert community to work with us on those vulnerabilities that were discovered by you, because right now we do have one president, one of the specialists, and his name is placed in our resource. One specialist have sent us information about availability of the vulnerability. We're trying to check this vulnerability. We have not finished this work, and if this person is here, I will explain your reason. The fact is that it's a very expensive equipment involved in this vulnerability. And if you are not able to confirm it simply like that, well, what is the main objective of this work is that we would like to build cooperation with manufacturers of the software so that they should be informed, and from our side we also should ask them to remove such vulnerabilities if they are discovered. As for Russian developers, manufacturers, and first of all those companies which certify their products in our certification system, this practice is already available. So if you've been able to see two Russian products in respect to which we have introduced certain vulnerabilities about them, and after developers have removed those vulnerabilities and they have published information about where the upgrade can be downloaded from, we have transferred this information and we have included into an open segment of our database. I'm speaking about 1C and database Winter. So I think we have very good relations with you. But the main problem which happens is that we don't have a constant understanding, especially on the side of Russian manufacturers, about the need of solving these objectives. And these processes being extended in time due to the absence of human resources, due to the absence of the testing possibilities. But I think that we are working with developers, with software developers very closely, and especially I'm speaking about Russian manufacturers, and we will work with them very actively. So I think that together with them we'll be able to solve this problem. I'm speaking about removal of vulnerabilities. This is our joint work. So your participation as experts, as specialists in this work, it's important. It is important. And we, together with you, we are ready to work in this direction. Well, as for our orientation, well, as I've told you in the beginning, it was first like informational resource, but we're also working on other directions to extend its functionality for practical operations. And our main objective is to develop an orientation for it so that its specifics should be emphasized. And starting from the year 2016, we will look at Russian software, not excluding, of course, our work with other common products and systems which are commonly used both in our countries and in the West. But we do think that the value of our work and its specifics is consisting of the fact that we should work according to Russian software. Information about it is very scarce in foreign sources, and sometimes it's not even available. So, more obviously, you will be able to see it in the year 2016, but we had to start from something, so we have formed this zero level from which we have started our movement. As for further developments, we will see how we'll be able to do that, how we'll be able to achieve results. Yes, of course, we have not achieved a certain system which is distributed by the analysis of vulnerabilities together with our Western like Microsoft, Cisco, with our Western clients. Well, we don't have such a system, but we are striving for it. So we are moving this direction with small steps. And I do hope that we'll be able to complete this project. Well, let me see. Among those publications that I was speaking about, maybe I can refer to some of them. Well, we do work with all incoming information, and perhaps you've paid attention to the fact there's a page for feedback, and you can also have an ability to provide information and try give this information about threats, vulnerabilities, and about the resource itself. And we constantly work on it, and we do cooperate with those specialists who have been directing this information to us. So I can tell you, once again, all the suggestions and recommendations which are given to us, we do analyze them all, but there is a number of difficulties which are related with financing and with our possibilities to apply these efforts. One of those objectives is comparative analysis of threats and vulnerabilities and their identification in order to have understanding which are the threats and which vulnerability they do exploit. We did have two different proposals in this direction, but at a given moment of time we still work in this direction because there are certain difficulties, like the big number of vulnerabilities should be introduced. But perhaps this should be done. We should evaluate it until the end of the year. And possibility to do this work is a joyful one, and we'll have an objective like that. And as for methodological provisioning, we have published those methodologies on our internet site, and this site uses database of threats to information that we have downloaded. We collect information. We collect information from the internet publications. We will give all sufficient information. For example, Real have published this information, and I will analyze it and will take it into consideration. The only thing I would like to hear more specifics about how can we fix methodological errors. And I would like to see certain specific proposals and not just general description of the problem. But with this, we always have small problems. And as for the other moment, database, and well, it's not a document, it's informational resource for information. And when the model of threats is being formed in this informational system, it does have the same value like a URL to methodological document of any other company. And that's what we're speaking about in our informational message that was published on the internet site as well. So I'm ready to answer your question. Yes, welcome. Software. Yamukin Yokogawa. Please tell us, how do you select the software? And the second question, will it be mandatory for getting the certificate, security certificate, will it be mandatory to be included in this list? Well, I will start with the second question, the list by which we select for the analysis software. This is not related with mandatoriness of certification of this software. So these are two processes which are independent one from another. So it doesn't mean necessarily. I would like to say it's not just a simple list that was approved by somebody somewhere and then we forget about it. No. It's a list of products that we first of all are looking at in a specific year. How it's been formed? It's been formed on the analysis of common resources. And why do I mean by that? It includes registries, registry of federal state systems. These are different contests, open trades. These are projects with a lot of information, and we've been missing it, especially those projects which are executed in different industries. So these are sources related to some statistical data of a company that was published several years ago on how many different products in which industries they do use. So they have a lot of criteria, and there are different priorities to the sources. But there is no need in well, the list of products which are being covered or have a high frequency of utilization, and of course we are working in this direction as well. We have a proposal to ask other questions a little bit later. Not a little bit later. A little bit later you will never be able to ask those questions. So if you have questions, you should ask them. Because it's not often we have a possibility to speak up, especially speaking about such an interesting topic. Otherwise, we'll forget about it. Other interesting presentations will take you away from Kirill Urpasov, Krasnodarsky Krai. Tell me, please, is there a possibility to come to you as an expert committee somehow with a request to analyze software which is being done at level of region? So we have a number of informational systems which are done globally through the whole region, and privately about me, I do have certain questions to this software. So you can help us with this, I think. Well, we are speaking about state systems and regional levels, so we have to look carefully to it and about the necessity of its certification, because we shouldn't forget the process of certificational tests. If this product have passed certification procedure, and if he has Well, if Leon didn't pass the certification, should he pass the certification? And we're speaking about the state certification system. Then all products should be certified, those which are sold as mechanism, and those which have the measures of information protection. This is not my requirement. This is requirement of legislation and other sub-laws. Therefore, if it involves some other product, then you can give us offers to a feedback. And I cannot guarantee you that today you write and tomorrow we bring it to you. It involves a lot of efforts. More questions? Chikari and Victor. So every vulnerability is being checked by you in your lab. Yes, yes, yes. Shmidov Yaroslav Mia. Is it possible to acquire data about vulnerabilities that were discovered by third entity? No, stack. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So anybody can send data to you, and you have the possibility to check it. Yes, we have the following mechanism. This mechanism was done, and users who send us such data, they should be able to see what really happens, and there's a list of information about vulnerabilities, and we tell him about the status, whether it's on, in the process, or off. And I can tell you that zero-level vulnerabilities we also should pay attention to, because zero-day vulnerabilities, and about which we didn't find any information, we are not source of those, but we are working with them. We do come to the software developers, but if you will send to us information and if it's going to be confirmed, it doesn't mean that it will appear immediately open. And we work with the developers, with the manufacturers of particular software pieces. Hello. Alexander Kotov, Восход. About zero-day vulnerability. Didn't you think about mechanism according to which general informational systems could receive this information? Because if they want to operatively introduce changes into the defense systems. Yes, we do have such a desire, but in this case we have a number of problems. Most of the vulnerabilities are vulnerabilities of software code, which can be removed only the upgrade of the software is being provided. Some configurational vulnerabilities or settings vulnerabilities, product configuration, well, from this point of view, it's much simpler to work. Therefore, once again, I would like to tell you this feedback and informing of developers, manufacturers, and owners about systems and operators of state systems. Well, right now this mechanism is being developed and improved, and on certain examples we will try to build it. But yes, we do have such objectives. Kuleshov Artyom, I have the following question. You have CCIs that was certified, and zero-day vulnerability, we did have a lot certified. For example, shell shock. We have defined that it was certified, but what can be done with such a software? And this critical vulnerability was discovered, but the next check will be in 5 years. Well, send us information. We'll organize work on removing this vulnerability, because it's not always it's not always productively happens with us. But when you've told us about the shell shock, I will make another example, not specific to Russia, but to the system, to a human system. Positive, honestly speaking. So after shell shock have appeared and first information was published about it, so we did confirm its truthfulness internally for ourselves to organize work. and to all the developers and manufacturers of the software on the basis of Linux cores and other similar kernels. We have sent them letters with the desire to remove this problem, and such letters, well, speaking about the total number, I will take 17. I will exclude those which are close in the sphere, and the exploitation will not happen. There will be even 10 of them. So out of those 10, today 5 have informed us, and half of them have decided not to tackle with it. And the rest of them have said that this is a question of import replacement of everything. So everybody else have told us that we are not able because we don't have enough people, or we cannot because we don't have enough money. We are just planning of making them. So we will work in the following way. Those 5 that were able to do that, there will be applications to apply these products. So we will try to definitely certify, and we'll certify products, and we'll try to achieve temporary vulnerabilities together with them. So the secondary certification will happen after it? No. The mechanism of upgrade is a very painful topic, and for the second year we're discussing this topic. So we do propose after tomorrow we'll have a meeting with manufacturers and other companies. We'll have another meeting and we'll discuss the topic of threat removal, and we do insist on including this document into exploitational documentation on as a certified means. Where me and Urgent, we do include this procedure in the life cycle of the product. Therefore, we do perfectly understand that we cannot cover everybody simultaneously, but I would like to tell you, dear colleagues, that all problems related with integrity of the code, applying necessary amendments, these are all solvable problems, but this procedure should be done operatively. So we do work with manufacturers and developers. Some achieve more results, some achieve less result. Thank you. Well, continuing the topic of vulnerabilities. Yeah, let's continue, of course. I'm apologizing, but when we are not going to have any more questions, or we are limited in time, I don't think that somebody will kick us out of this room. No? We will be kicked out of this room when the time runs up. Oh well. Dmitry Yanchenko, I have the following question. On this resource you have 164 vulnerabilities. Do you have any plans, any activities on creating and collecting statistics, relevant statistics about the number of every threat losses related to this threat? Well, it's a complex question, and we do work on this particular question, and I'm not ready to give any particular answer that yes, we do plan, because these proposals did come to us in the process of discussions. So we will look at our possibilities and our budgets. Yes, of course, this is some direction that we want to move in. Due to the fact that I took a lot of your time, so thank you very much for your attention. I will take my seat. Well, you'll be able to ask questions after this section. Nobody will run away after it. Continuing the topic of vulnerabilities and information protection, Dmitry Gusev, the floor is yours. Hello, dear colleagues. Once again, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dmitry Gusev. I represent Infotex company. Once again, those of you who don't know, we do development of the means of protection of information, and mostly we work with public companies, and it did happen that in our country it's kind of a profile discipline, especially for those who are involved in security, and commercial organizations historically have been purchasing foreign software and hardware, but we're not going to speak about it today. Today we're going to speak about questions related to the discovery of those vulnerabilities. In our case, even a narrow specific topic, discovering vulnerability and measures of security, measures that we have to develop and detect. But we all perfectly understand that every security measure is a certain hardware-software complex, and sometimes a software complex, which is subject to similar potential threats to which regular info systems are subject. To us, for the infotech company, this topic of discovering vulnerability, we have our own product. It happened several years ago when we have developed it. When we truly started, we became not a victim, but we started communicating with external expert who has informed us about the fact that in our product, he has discovered certain vulnerability. He wrote us a letter, and we have discovered this topic for us, because previously we were very academic company, and many of our competitors are also similar companies like ours. We have been following regulators' requirements about protection of information. We went through certification. Then suddenly some person writes us a letter. Hey guys, in your client you have a problem. How can it be exploited? And then we immediately started thinking about the fact that yes, we have to look at this world in a wide open eyes. Then we started actively coming to events similar to this one. We started looking at Western practices from Microsoft company, which many of you know is a leader in promoting security topic in safe code topics, and we have discovered for ourselves the same practices do exist inside of many other vendors, companies which develop not only software but some networking products. And Cisco has its own methodology which is very similar to Microsoft's methodology. So we have started testing all of this on ourselves. And we have discovered very interesting things, that programmers are programmers everywhere, respectively to which company they work for. And programmers, they're fashionable guys. They love to use new agile code development techniques. And we have discovered that programmers, they don't really understand security, except for those experts in the company who initially knew about this particular problem of informational security and problem of creating the cryptographic protection of information, but they are not developers, those who understand it. They are team leads, they are architects, they are analytics, they are experts, they are not developers. That's why when for the first time we had an objective to introduce into our program practices, introduce the method of safe code development. In the beginning, we had to overcome very difficult problems and barriers, how we would call them, related with misunderstanding and level of developers. Why do we need it all? Well, experts came to us and they said, well, you have to stop looking at your agiles, at your cards, priorities, who will be able to do what. First, you should speak about model. What is model? They've told us. A model of securities and threats. And this initial stage, which became really painful for our company, took about a year and a half for us when we've started in a number of our products to apply these practices. In some cases it did work, in some cases it didn't work. We have learned a lot about our own products, and moreover, we have even selected in our company a separate sub-company, Perspectively Monitoring, the name of the company. We have concentrated practical security resources, and this subsidiary is involved on a regular basis in checking our own products before they are being published on the market and given to certification. So I think it does help us a lot, because truthfully there's a lot of interesting things that were discovered after the product immediately from the hands of developers comes to the hands of the expert. It's a fact, and we think that it's not a problem that we're thinking about this scheme and these resources. Well, the life is difficult, and once again I would like to repeat my main thought. like earlier, and right now we're following the requirements of the regulators. We should be involved in certain control activities, and those initiatives Vitaly Sergeyevich have told you about. And the term vulnerability is in the documents. Then, of course, requirements to check the software for those vulnerability and the means of protecting of the information. I think these are useful exercises, much more useful exercises than discovering which manufacturer is a Russian or non-Russian developer. It's better to have proper requirements and show the quantum of mistrust of the products rather than looking at where the software was written. So, this history of Infotechs, I would like to end this history about discovering of vulnerabilities. But if you have any questions, I will definitely answer them. I'm going to be here. Thank you. Well, while we started speaking about analysis and protection of intellectual products, Vladimir, the floor is yours. Hello, I represent that company, Perspectively Monitoring, which does the analysis of security of products and information systems. Well, I would like to talk what Dmitry was speaking about because we do work in this direction, and we also have started from that particular incident that was involved in COE database and other databases. We need Russian resource from the many points of view due to many reasons. First of all, we needed to be able to read from reliable sources, then write from reliable sources, because right now the process of the discovery of vulnerability looks very strangely. If you find a problem in the Russian program, you should tell about it to them, and it destroys the sense of the existence of the organization and the principle of trust to Russian local developers. Then it should go the principles of vulnerability, because not all of them can be easily removed and from the first time. That's why if you will look at statistics of vulnerability removal by bigger vendors, this time can reach 6 months. That's why it will forget who will tell you. Of course, informational systems have to be controlled and have to be adaptable for our realities as well. As for the database that we see right now from Stack, maybe, yes, we do write our comments, maybe not as publicly as you might think so, but we would like to deliver them to the authors. But there's one significant risk here involved, because you should have URLs, there shouldn't be external URLs, there should be minimum of them. And by the way, there's a very actual threat related with networking means which do use. You perfectly understand that if certain administrator on a certain networking device will follow the link which is related to the foreign non-trusted link, by this he will disclose the resource from which he gets access, and he will show those points where the entry points to these facilities, and in the passive mode you can do the intelligence operations against this facility in Russian Federation. Well, this is just by word. And right now, coming back to what this database contains and what do we see? Yes, of course, threats. They should be updated and upgraded from this point of view more precisely, more clearly. I will show it to you. But there's a big risk if you will start reading this database of threats. Well, the first store, this is something fundamental I'm speaking about, and it's a big risk which is related to the fact that this database of vulnerabilities will not be able to be changed because, well, irrespectively to what it says. But afterwards we shouldn't be able to change it, because afterwards many other documents will refer to it and the integrity will start disappearing, and it's not going to be clear how should we live with all of this. So from this point of view, I would like to see everything that was written. We will not change. And those links which are available right now, these are external links, CWE, they should be replaced. because the main sense of this database of vulnerabilities is being weakened. But generally speaking, it's a good beginning. It says a lot of efforts from the point of view how to define. So you don't have to do this analytical work cognitively every time when you do the analysis of products. And of course, this allows us to have very powerful leverage, which makes both developers and users of the product to move forward. And the first vulnerability that we've been speaking about, it was discovered in a product that was removed from certification, from sales, and from everything else. So can we say to the market, this mechanism didn't exist back then? But generally speaking, I believe that I'm not taking a lot of your time, so I will answer your questions if you will have any. So the key moment I would like to tell you about right now, this database is really needed in a mode when you can enter it without any problems. You can write whatever you want in this database without thinking a second thought. Well, is it possible to say something or not thinking something? Well, it should be, of course, a clear mechanism of market regulation, because otherwise some people already have get facts when from certifying bodies of authority. They come to discover some vulnerability in certain products in the same databases, Western databases, and they have a question how this was searched, what was the main reason of searching it, did you make an example like that, and under which angle you look at this mirror. I think all these problems will be removed due to availability of such a Russian resource, and generally speaking, we do plan to use it actively. We think that it's going to be much more difficult, much more heavier for us to write reports and to speak about vulnerabilities. So that's it. Thank you very much. I have specified myself. If you have any questions, I'm here. You can ask me. Dear colleagues, we've been speaking so fast. So the next speaker, otherwise, well, I would like to ask a couple of questions or maybe add a little bit, especially about the suggestion that was given about building threats in hierarchy. And it's the question of classifier. In the year 2016, we will work from them. But next year, we don't know about all those detailed questions. We know them only on a general level. And I do remember when we started speaking about grid. Grid is not because we really like it or don't like the grid, but we've been building them on the basis of alphabet, on the basis of certain algorithm. And it did happen that in the beginning we did have grid and BIOSes, etc. But the work on classificational indicators and classifiers in order to make it more convenient from the point of view of the inbuiltness and granularity. And also, dear colleagues, I would like to tell you, once again, I'm turning to you, and this is a traditional call to all of you. When you write in mass media some comments to presentations, including this current presentation, please do quote more correctly. My students, 1S and linter, I didn't say that it's newly certified. I've told you that you certify these products. And it was a big work that was done by us. And we jointly, together with the developers, have been working. They are not newly certified. I'm speaking about a long-time certified companies. And 1C will put me into prison for speaking lies on the basis of your publications. And speaking about the upgrade of threats, not a database, but it's being updated once every quarter. But you know, vulnerabilities are being updated once every week because you set a threat information that is upgraded once every quarter, and everybody thinks that, well, we are working a lot here to achieve certain tempo, but you are not following this tempo. Thank you. Well, today an integral part in protecting information is done by experts who provide integrity of this software. Dmitry Yevteev is one of them. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm Dmitry Yevteev. I represent Headlight Security Company. Several words about myself. I have more than 10 years of pen testing, and when I was shown this site, this database, I became happy. I said, well, what's wonderful. Finally, we have Russian language resource, analogy of foreign CVs, and, well, it's wonderful, actually. So I started looking at this resource, and the first thing that surprised me as a practitioner, that it's only paper. They have not proposed any automated device or tools that will help people to discover these vulnerabilities. It's wonderful that Stack works with Russian vendors, but you should understand that, honestly speaking, researchers who discover in certified products or in other clean products like Microsoft or Linux, they, honestly speaking, will publish these vulnerabilities in a format which is understandable to them. See, so in any case, identifier will come there. The fact that additionally they have this database, but as a practitioner, and I don't know how, but how can we find those vulnerabilities? For example, there is some kind of a nexus, mind maps, automated tools, free of charge or paid ones, which help us to discover vulnerabilities. Sikunia, for example, or Russian Max Patrol. Do they have the whole fullness of knowledge? Well, I was invited there as a criticist of this database today. So I will tell you my criticism. I'm surprised that in the year 2015 we still are we evaluate them by SVSSs. But dear colleagues, in the year 1999, the vulnerability that was assessed on CVSS with a rating 5.0 back then. Well, it's non-authorized transfer of DNS zone. Well, wait a second. We see vulnerabilities. For example, even today we've been speaking about web application vulnerabilities, and they are more critical ones, even though they don't have big rating and it's not above transfer zone. So what the attacker can do if he learns about the names of your systems? Well, sometimes it helps you to get certain access to the information system by local upgrade is dangerous, very dangerous. Therefore, my private opinion is that we should make some Russian replacement to CSS, more wider, more full, considering all the technologies which are involved into it. And speaking about vulnerabilities are being produced in level 700 a day, and they have automated exploits for them. And a couple words about exploits. Well, I'm looking at the database and I started thinking, how can I trust this database? For example, there's a vulnerability, and right now I'm looking at it, and vulnerability driver HTTP sys. This is just recent vulnerability related to web server IIS, common web server, and in the common access there was even an exploit which has permitted to completely compromise the web server. Well, I read about this common server, but it was a fake, actually speaking. It was a fake. And as I understand, if you will look through the whole database of this, you will find certain misconceptions, but you know, it's on level 10, not 1. So briefly, without keeping you, this is my private opinion as a practitioner of this database. Well, we still have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot to develop in our company. And in the future, I do hope that we will have something automated, and it will help us searching for vulnerabilities. And another moment of time, vulnerabilities, they are really flat. So there is no some solution which unites those vulnerabilities. Today, colleagues have been speaking that yes, you have to install patches, but we are 2015, right? We live in 2015. Yes, it is 2015. So there are products which allow us to remove vulnerability in advance. And Microsoft inbuilt such solutions into their decisions. And vendors right now significantly help us in getting involved and removing. For example, we can take automatic source and pull up from GitHub Linux upgrade. Uh, by installing each update right now separately, I think it's the wrong time. Because we have a lot of systems surrounding us. And, well, this is my opinion about this database. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear colleagues. I also would like to say a couple of words. I would like to say, first of all, thanks to Dmitry, from which point of view. We want specialists with their critical requests. The more you will, the more we understand you. I'm speaking about practitioners which work with these resources, and then we'll have more opportunity, more possibilities, and more obligation to complete the training process and bring it to a higher quality level. That's number one. And out of everything that I've been speaking about, 12 notes and proposals that were given to us, these questions, practical questions, are very few of those. Most of the questions are questions related about systems, about the wholeness, about some terms and some other things. But things like these, well, we miss them and we don't have enough of them. That's why I want you, well, like Dmitry, we should look at this question critically and we should provide proposals in order to be able to work with them. And I didn't mean something specific because I will not be able to write everything. I was even able to do it together with Dmitry within his presentation. The second moment, while forming this resource, we have tried at a given stage not to do certain revolutions, and we didn't want to get out of common trends, common global trends. Maybe you're right. Maybe you are right from the point of view of necessity of developing our own standard, and moreover, in addition to that, we did make certain specific steps on standardizing. We have developed 3 national standards and vulnerabilities, 2 of them already in raw standard, and 1 more will be sent there very soon. And yes, of course, they have general description of some peculiarities. Which one of those we will think about it with VSS. But our first main objective was not to make any revolutions, but to follow innovation way. As for automated search engines, we do have plans, especially for those products which, well, we'll look how the work will continue, because if it will have positive dynamics, including upon the results of expert assessments, then from a certain period of time we will introduce mandatory for all Russian scanners which are being certified to use the link of this database. So we'll approach it. Otherwise, we don't want to do such significant moves on the market right now. But this is the right direction which we are moving in. Some separate software pieces, hardware pieces, which also would automate the process, discover and analyze those. We do work on it and standardize decision on over language on some other languages. We are still working on those questions, but I think that by the end of the year, and the next event, on the autumn, an event that will happen of a similar type. Perhaps you will have a certain position down here. What about the information, dear colleagues? I didn't really understand. We should have right. like you have said that there's an exploit, but it's applicable only to those. Which should you write that it's not available? We analyze different sources, and if we do see information that there's availability of a certain exploit, we have to publish it down there. And once again, I would like to say we are not checking exploits in order for you to understand. We don't write exploits, and in our work, we do use box. We do analyze software code, but we don't assemble exploits, and we don't have an idea of providing these exploits because we are a little bit objective. We have another objective we have than that. And in general, I would like to say that if, according to your opinion, there are some incorrect things, and you are specialists, and that's why we came to this presentation, that's why we have opened it. We could work with this certification system our own. We could make access to this system only to the users which have applied to buy certified products, and then we would dig with them and solve these problems. But why we have opened it? We have done it in order to involve as much experts as possible to this particular work and to look at all the program and how to remove it. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, dear colleagues. I would like to apologize, but we already have covered the next presentation, and the organizers will beat me up. So if you have any questions, ask them outside of this presentation. Thank you.